Looking forward to a great session. And I think a lot has been said about the topic. And indeed, HR was thrust rightfully in the driver's seat when the pandemic set on us. And the question was, and still remains, are we driving well? Are we guided well? And I think today we get into another topic, looking at the office-less state. And it has been mentioned that we moved from workplace to work space. Now we're going office-less. What does that mean for us when we're talking about performance, when we're talking about just the whole digital transformation? To help us unpack this, we have a very powerful panel, and I'll just briefly introduce them. As I introduce you, kindly just wave, and then we'll get into the questions. Our first panelist is Dr. Offie Anderson. Offie, if you can wave, thank you. He's SBS faculty, and he's adjunct faculty at Lagos Business School. He is a transformational and thought leader, and currently a doctoral student of the PhD program in business and management at Strathmore University, with a specialization in digital transformation within emerging markets. What is interesting about Dr. Anderson is, despite we've said he's doing his doctoral studies and in digital transformation, you will hear he's actually speaking a lot on the HR aspect. He is a medical doctor, having studied medicine in Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria. He has a postgraduate diploma in leading innovation and change from York St. John's University in the UK, and a master's in global management from the University of Salford, UK. He is an international peace speaker, a certified professional coach, a certified IT business manager, and a certified emotional and social competency inventory assessor. That is all above him being a medical doctor. So we look forward to hearing from you, Dr. Anderson. Next is Dr. Elizabeth Calais, who's from the Judiciary in Kenya. Dr. Calais is the head of human resource management and development at the Judiciary of Kenya, with 25 years hands-on experience as a HR practitioner. She's passionate about people management, change, and organizational development. She is a certified HR practitioner and holds a PhD in human resource management from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, JKUAT. She is a certified engagement and productivity coach, and has previously worked with Kenya Power, where she honed her skills as a HR professional. She has also worked with Kenya Airports Authority as General Manager, Human Resource Management Development. And once again here, we look at a perspective from the public sector from Dr. Calais. Next, we have Michael Chemore. Michael is the head of talent at Amref Health Africa Global Headquarters. He's a human capital management and development professional with 15 years career experience spanning aviation, banking, manufacturing, and international health development sectors. And prior to joining Amref, he was the regional learning and development manager at Nestle, regional manager talent and development also at Nestle East Africa, East and Southern Africa, learning and development manager, HR partner and HR business partner at Barclays, now Absa Bank, and learning and development officer at Kenya Airways. Michael holds a master's in science degree in organizational development, a Bachelor of Science in Management, a higher diploma in HR management, and an executive coaching certificate. He also has IATA certification in quality management and implementation, QMS. Then our last panelist from South Africa is Sean Hetema, who is from Sean Hetema Consulting. Sean is a leading consultant on various independent consulting services, such as design and integration of global leadership programs and facilitation of strategy development and review processes. His focus of consulting is on facilitating strategy formulation and execution through leadership and team effectiveness. He has worked with different organizations, the ABSA Group, Standard Bank Group, Sasol, KPMG, Sanlam Investment Management, ESCOM, MTN, SAB Miller, Africa, Siemens, Nando's. He's actually been through quite a range of industries. He is an associate of Henley Business School, adjunct faculty of Gordon Institute of Business Science, adjunct faculty at Strathmore Business School, and MSc Consulting. Sean has an honors degree in psychology. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you agree with me that that's quite a powerful panel. As Waheto has reminded us, let's type in our questions in the chat and in the Q&A. And as you type in any question you have, kindly remember to include who the question is directed to. So now let's get right into it. And I start with you, Dr. Calais. The public sector to most has been seen as being very bureaucratic, hierarchical, almost slow. Tell us, how does Offie-less work in the public service? And even as you look at the public service, can you tell us, is Offie-less for everyone? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Gitoho, and thank you all participants for this opportunity that we may be able to talk about our Offie-less states in this era of the pandemic. And looking at it from the public sector, I'm sure most of you know what it means having an office in the public sector. Especially if you are in a higher position, you are envisage a situation whereby you walk in, the secretary is there, you greet your secretary, you walk in, you take your seat to take off your jacket or whatever you're wearing, and then your big seat there, your rolling chair is there. That is what an office setup looks like in the public sector. If you are in any other rank, you can associate yourself with walking in. There's a chair there, there's some files there, you want to look at them and you really want to work. The pandemic has changed that scenario. And the public sector I can say, has really tried to up and put itself in a position whereby we no longer have offices and we have to do things virtually, Offie-less. In fact, I think it was a shocker to the public sector when they said that working from home. And the head of public service was telling us people must work from home. The shock was, what is the difference between a home and an office? I mean, my house is where I sit in the sitting room, but an office is where my authority is. It became like a shocker. But somehow we've tried to adapt. We've gone technology. We have a lot of technology has been put in to be able to change the public sector from office to Offie-less state. And this, when we look at this, we're looking at look at how the public sector has been able to conduct meetings. Virtual meetings have become the in thing. Traveling in the public sector is really a lot. It's now a thing of the past. Most of the meetings are being done virtually. And I would say this is where the public sector has really scored so much. Coming up with applications that address issues that don't require someone to walk into the office has really helped the public sector. Huduma centers have come up, specific applications have come up. And I just want to talk about the court scenario. Court scenario, you no longer need to walk to Milimani. You no longer need to walk to any court session to be able to file your case. Judgments are being delivered online. Cases are being filed online. Inquiries are being made online. SMS applications, Safaricom has come in with a lot of applications that are helping members of the public be able to access services that required physical visits to offices. It's no longer happening. And I see this one really being sustained because going forward, nobody has the time. With the traffic jam in Nairobi, with the traveling, with the expenses in traveling, nobody has the time to visit a government office physically to seek for services. If you want to come to the office setup, just look for a file. A phone call will do. We all now have phone calls. We all now have phones. Everybody has a phone, a mobile phone, at least at any given time. They're holding their phones in the hand. You just need to call. This has been enhanced and you get whatever inquiry that we are trying to make. Unless it's a sector that it's not a service sector, that is now when maybe you'll require to do physical visits. But for the public sector, which is dominantly dominated by service, office-less, the issue of having a very big office setup, the office issue of walking in for the secretary to greet your secretary and to go and sit are no longer there, because that same secretary, you'll give them work, they will do it at home and they'll be able to share it with you on email, on WhatsApp, on whatever mode that is there. So Dr. Gitoho, public sector, we have upped our games and we are up to it that we are also adopting to office-less. It was a shocker, but we are glad that this pandemic came in and has given us the reality of not owning an office. You can be somewhere and you can still be able to do your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's reassuring, and I hope it stays that way. I move over to West Africa now, and Dr. Anderson, you're a medical doctor turned the strategic transformational leader for the digital age with a special focus on emerging market economies. A real disruptor, I must say. Kindly share your experience about what working from anywhere and delivering is, and also perhaps what is the most overlooked disruption in our organizations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gito. Good morning, panelists. Good morning, everyone. Exciting to be here. Lagos is not as cold as Nairobi is, and I don't know how it is for you, Sean. So yes, I must say that my experience of the office-less environment started in 2008. Then I was leading a team. We're building a number of websites for a Pan-African business. Just think about Jumia Group website and all the country offices that they are in. So I had a small team, and this team was made up of all fresh graduates, okay, from the university. They were so excited. They would come in even during weekends to work. And I didn't feel it was fair to let them also come for 5 days in a week. So I started giving them a day or two off. Because we're building websites, I can track and monitor them in real time. I can see if you were supposed to have done something by 2 p.m., I can check virtually. So I could monitor performance. And so I said to them, why don't you take 1 to 2 days off? And then there was a lot of resistance from very senior managers. But I kept to my guns. So at the end of 1 year, the team had made a cost savings of $3.5 million. And that was not part of our remit. And then the team went on to win the top 3 Project of the Year award at the annual Companies Award. So that taught me clearly that working anywhere, okay, could be successful under the right circumstances and conditions. And so since then, I've led teams, I've helped set up teams, I've worked on projects where we're either 100% online or we're a hybrid of online and offline. And that takes me to what I call the most disruptive force in this era. It is not about digital disruptive technologies. There's so much emphasis on the tools. My focus is that if you really want to drive disruption, you need to focus on building a digital mindset in the organization. And what do I mean by digital mindset? A digital mindset questions how things are done. It asks, can we do this better, faster, cheaper, more conveniently? Okay, can it be more seamless? Is this worth doing at all? Okay, and a great proponent of that is Steve Jobs. If a team comes to Steve Jobs, let's say the product teams, to say, look, it will take the user 5 steps to do something. Steve Jobs will ask, why not 4 steps? And if they tell him it's 4 steps, he will say, why not 3 steps? If you tell him 3 steps, he will say, why not 2 steps? And then why not 1 step? And then finally, if you tell him 1 step, he would ask, why is the customer doing it at all? Okay, and that takes me to the concept of what we call the stupid why questions. The stupid why questions are questions customers already ask. why are you asking me to come to the branch? Why can't I file, okay, my case is online? Okay, why can't I? All the why questions, the stupid questions are the questions that internally our teams ought to be asking. Because where we don't ask them and when we don't address those stupid why questions, what then happens is that we lose the opportunity to serve and exploit value, capture value from customers. So it's really very important. So in summary, if you were to ask me, okay, a digital mindset has the mindset that there is nothing, okay, so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. I will repeat, there is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. And that's a digital mindset. And that for me is the biggest disruptor that organizations should focus on building. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Not only have you tackled that indeed we can measure and performance can actually be tracked, but you've given us quite some thoughts there on the digital mindset, and we shall revisit your quote there, and also perhaps how we track what are those tools that you've talked about. But now let's move to South Africa and let's get the perspective of Sean. And Sean, perhaps you can tell us, how do you support the transition from a fixed location to being office-less? What are some of the breakthrough processes and systems that can help businesses? Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Gito, and good morning, everybody. It's great to be with all of you. It's a lot colder here than Nairobi, and I wish I was in Lagos, because I'm sure Lagos is maybe cold for Lagos, but I'm sure it's a lot warmer than here. We woke up to -2 this morning, hence I've got a scarf on and everything else, so freezing. But wonderful to be with you. Yeah, I was, and thank you also, Dr. Anderson. I got really excited listening to you because I'm very interested in the space of the frontiers in the mind rather than the frontiers in technology itself. So I'm really interested in the truly human side of us being able to be truly digital. And I think coming back to the question, I think this transformation that we're on currently is a little bit like watching a tree grow. I remember in the early 2000s talking about new ways of work, talking about more empowerment, talking about more self-directed teams, leadership that enables people to be more self-directed, pursuing some of the early Six Sigma continuous improvement questions, which are like the stupid why questions. And suddenly this pandemic, I think, has accelerated a transformation that was already actually taking place. And in fact, in a strange way, is a gift, because I think it's pushed us over an edge that we maybe were struggling to get leaders and organizations to imagine. And now that we sort of forced over the edge and we've just had to cope, I think we've realized that actually we have put a lot of things in place already that enable us to be able to do that. I'm particularly intrigued by one element that is really required in terms of enabling this. And again, it's not on the technology side, it's about autonomy. It's our ability as leaders to give the right type of autonomy, to put in the right scorecards and feedback loops that allow people to do what I believe people want to do in any case, which is the right thing to make a difference and to add value. So I think what we need is a live feedback loop for people to see whether they are improving whatever they're wanting to improve, whether they are having a bigger impact. And we need leaders that understand what motivates some people and how to maybe have freedom in a framework. So I think we need guardrails, we need boundaries, and in fact, a lot of organizations that I've worked with in Southern Africa specifically, but beyond that, have been pursuing new ways of working in Agile for quite a few years. So I think we need to build on the foundations that we've already put in place. I do think there are some leaders that still wrestle with how to now do this from a virtual domain. So I mean, we'll speak a little bit more about that later on, but I think there are some nuances that leaders are challenged by, and I think that we as HR professionals can support them with.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you. Brought in the aspect again of the leadership autonomy. It all boils down to how are we leading our teams. and some of the tools. What are our, what inspires or motivates us? I like the guardrails and the boundaries, because how are we setting those in an office-less state? So food for thought as we move on. And now we move back to East Africa, Kenya. Michael, you're in the global health sector. Maybe you can tell us what has the new normal, how has it played out for you in your space? And are there some best practices perhaps that we can borrow from? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salome, and thank you very much for having me here. It's indeed exciting to make a contribution to this conversation. The new shift calls for a total mind shift, a paradigm shift in the way our leaders think, in the way we manage our people, in the approach to the challenges we face in the workplace. And maybe if I just go back a little bit and just give you some context on the light of what my other colleagues, panelists have already mentioned, is that we, in 2019, we decided to roll out a remote working policy on a pilot basis. So we put it together and we rolled it out, but on a pilot basis, early Q1 of 2020. Little did we know that actually that will be the normal in the next few weeks. And come end of Q1, we had to transform immediately and accept that that is the way we are going to work, and now educate our staff to embrace the new way of working, shifting from in-person to virtual working. And so AMREF, being a player in the health sector, we had to take leadership, provide direction to our external partners, internal stakeholders as well. And our focus, of course, was one, safety of our staff, minimizing impact of job loss, and also to secure our business continuity. But as we clearly understood the pandemic and we moved forward, we now decided to establish very elaborate procedures and response protocols and policies that adopted agile work arrangements. So what we did, we had staggered work schedules, remote working, and depending on the nature of the job, then we moved on to sorry, one second. We moved on to having very elaborate protocols that enabled us to continue working effectively. So what are the lessons that we can learn from this? Is that we need to think about securing our employee engagement. Very, very important. And I think some of the lessons that we need to ask ourselves, is the infrastructure right to support the virtual working or the office-less workspace? Do we as leadership communicate clearly and consistently? How can we leverage on technology that we've already mentioned? How can we leverage on technology as a basis for collaboration? Considering that our staff sit in different locations, don't see each other face to face, don't have the luxury of walking into an office or have a chat at the coffee dispenser, how then do we ensure we have collaboration? However, all this is hinged on or grounded on psychological safety. So the next question we need to ask ourselves, do we have the right environment that enhances or embraces psychological safety? Because wherever our staff are, wherever they sit, they should have the confidence to be able to speak up and say whatever challenges they are facing. And I think also one thing that HR leaders need to ask themselves is, how can they deepen the work relationship? How can you synergize the teams? How can you ensure that we take care of each other? How can we build, how can we leverage on coaching and mentoring? And then finally, how can we maintain productivity and high level performance? So those are things that I think our leaders should be thinking about. That's a challenge we should be thinking about. And I think at the backbone of all this is to ensure that the mental and physical well-being of our staff is tip-top. Because if we lose that component, then we lose our productivity. And ensure we align our policies, ensure we are agile and we're ready for the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, definitely a nice introduction there of policy. You brought in great aspects of safety, the well-being of the people, even as they are officeless. And are they engaged? Are they safe? And a critical and current trend, not just a buzzword, but very important, agility. Maybe as we end this, when we come to the next round, just before we end, perhaps you might want, if you feel like you could share where your current office is right now. Not now, but you could share that later. It is actually very in keeping with our topic. So I know we want to engage the audience, but allow me just to take another round of questions. We'll just take one question per panelist, and then we shall be able to engage with the audience. And I hope you're writing your questions. And I see one is in the Q&A and another one, and there are a couple in the chat. Panelists, I encourage you also to just take a peek in there and see if you can respond to any of the questions that have been raised. And over to you, Dr. Calais. The question the topic I'd like you to talk to us about now is, what are the potential risks of being officeless? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gito, again. Thank you for that engagement. Like I mentioned to you, and especially looking at it from the public sector, an office setup is very, very key. The risks that are associated with being officeless. First and foremost, I'd like to pick up from where my colleague Michael has left it. There is what we call mental anguish. Mental anguish in a way that when you wake up, you are not able to leave your house because you're not going to the office. You need to work from the office. Office comes with status and authority. When you're in the office, you can be able to talk at the top of your voice. You can be able to consult your peers. You can be able to interact with people. It gives you even a social belonging with other people. But when you're officeless, whether it is by initiation or it's by demand by your employer that you need to work away from office, it brings some mental anguish, which we have seen from employees. And it's not just that mental anguish, also the anxiety, the loneliness, and the isolation. We've all had this where people keep asking, you are supposed to be working from home, but you're always asking your colleagues, kunaendaje uko? How is it in the office? What is happening there? Your mind is not at home. Your mind is in the office. It's only your body that is at home. So bringing yourself up, making a balance between being at home and concentrating to work and missing that office environment where there is social belonging, it becomes a real challenge. The quality and level of accountability. When you are at home, who checks on your work? Who monitors your performance? Level of accountability. On some instances, we've had people saying that we are working from home because I'm not going to the office. And when you call them, they say, I'll call you back. I'm on the street or I'm traveling. I'm going somewhere or I'm doing 1, 2, 3. Let me attend to 1, 2, 3 and I get back to you. But here you are supposed to be working from somewhere. Michael right now, we can see where he's working from. At least he's working because he's able to log in and join us in this meeting. But we have instances whereby people are not even able to account for not being physically in the physical offices that we have described. That the issue of peer reviews. You know, when you're in the office and you're working, if you're not able to get something, there's the tendency of working to a next person and consulting and being assisted. But in a home setup, in an officeless setup, where you are all alone, who checks on you? Who reviews you? Who guides you? Who counsels you when you think you're not?
Okay. I believe that's because I can see some of you moving. I'll move on then to Dr. Anderson. You talked about some frameworks that you can use or tools. Perhaps briefly tell us about some of those tools and also what are the benefits of being officeless. Briefly, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gito. And I stand on the shoulders of these giants panelists that have gone before me. In my experience of what has worked and what has not worked, I have a number of frameworks I want to just share. Practical frameworks you can put to use. And there are 3 of them I'll share. The first one is called the Agile Leadership Traits Framework. The second one is Digital Skills Framework. And the third is the 3H Coaching Framework. So I'll take the first one first. So we've talked about agility, agility, agility. What does that mean? And how can we create agility through the organization? So there's an Agile Leadership Traits Framework that looks at 7 behaviors. Okay, the 7 behaviors are 1, humility, adaptability, vision, engagement, what we call situational hyper-awareness, informed decision-making, and fast execution. So quickly, humility says, you know what? I am not too old, I am not too elderly, not too senior to learn from anyone. I can learn from anyone, even my subordinates. We need that in the organization. Secondly, adaptability says that, you know what? That I should value what? I should value a clear vision is better than a detailed plan. Okay, so I must be adaptable. Then vision is about what? It's about seeing something that is not there. Then engagement is saying that I'm always listening. I'm always listening. Then situational hyper-awareness says that I'm constantly scanning the environment for threats and opportunities. Informed decision-making says that for every decision we make, what does the data say? We need to find data to back it. And then finally, fast execution says that speed is better than what? So we should value speed more than perfection. That's what the Agile Leadership Traits Framework looks at. Then for the Digital Skills Framework, there are 7 domains. Irrespective of what we do, all these domains affect us. Number 1, the first domain is software and hardware. We all use hardware, we all use different software. So how well do you know, can you identify the right software and use the right software and hardware? Secondly, information and data literacy. A lot of people cannot search for information online. They can't even evaluate the information for credibility, for authority, for reliability. That's important. Then we have communication and collaboration. There are all sorts of tools to communicate and collaborate. Okay, we need to be able to use that. Then there is a concept of digital content creation, collation and curation. We need to be able to create digital content for the communication that we have. Can we do that in different formats? Then there is safety. We know about cybersecurity. We know about what? We know about social engineering and all sorts of things. So how do we ensure as we use these platforms that we are safe and we keep the organization safe? Then problem solving. How do we use all of these skills to be able to solve real world problems at our desk? Then finally, everyone, irrespective of your career, there are specific career-related competencies that digital skills will help us do. So we need 7 domains. How good are you in all of those areas? And then finally, the 3H framework looks at the head, the heart, and the hands. So the head is the seat of creativity, innovation, decision-making, analysis, problem solving. So you ask yourself, on a scale of 0 to 10, you 10 in the highest. How good is this head? Okay, if I use that. And then we look at the heart. The heart is the seat of empathy, compassion, love, concern, and service. So if you look at a team member on a scale of 0 to 10, how empathetic are they? Where is their heart? And then finally, the hands. The hands speak about technical proficiency. What can you do after all the stuff? Anderson, you could talk about digital transformation, but can you actually do it? And how well can you do it? So why this is important for all of these frameworks is that you can find the baseline for everyone. As of today, where are you in each of these areas? Okay, and every quarter, we should now set a target, okay? So if you are a 3 out of 10 in terms of, let's say, your head, for your role, let's say your role requires it to be a 7. can we work towards making you a 5, okay, over the next quarter? And that will now come with the right training, the right coaching, and the right mentoring framework to support all of that, okay? And then if I go on to your question around how can we benefit from are there any benefits from being office-less? There are great benefits if it is done right. It is do it for the right role, for the right person, with the right support, okay, in the right environment, and giving the right tools. If well implemented, some of the benefits are one, cost savings, okay, and increased revenue. I'll give you an example. There is a bank in Africa that closed 2/3 of its physical branches for 9 months. But yet, in March this year, declared a 2.3% rise in its profit after tax. Its profit after tax, as compared to last year, its profit after tax this year was about $0.5 billion. So it used 1/3 of its physical offices, he had more money. Then if I go on, for what people that it's commuting, look at the commuting cost. In Lagos, there are 20 million people. The average person spends about 6 hours a day commuting. The implication is that is 1,500 hours in a year, or 60 a year on the road. So imagine all the costs. So people that are healthier, that are happier, okay, you can have increased productivity, you can have better digitalization that leads to more efficiency, because people can be more creative and innovative. But you have to take care of issues like emotional burnout and all of the issues around mental health. Okay, so it has benefits, but then you have to mitigate the risk. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Great points there. And again, I'll request some of those, if we can recapture them in the chat. And we are reliving this topic. We keep having some disruptions, and I think we are managing well. I think with my team, should any of us drop out, we'll pick the questions. Now, I'd like to request Sean and Michael to just take a minute each to give a sort of like a parting shot, so that then we can engage with the audience. We start with you, Sean. And I see there's a question perhaps you wanted to respond to, if you can combine with that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, Dr. Anderson. I was wanting to clap as you were speaking. I think that's so on point, I think, in terms of the things that we need to address. So the question that was raised was, how do we deal practically with engagement? And I think that links, also to the resilience or the stresses and strains, I think, that people are dealing with. And I think especially HR professionals and leaders, senior executives, have got a big role to play. There's very, very interesting work that's been done by the Boston Consulting Group and Eve Moreau specifically on smart simplicity. And what the research has surfaced is that since the 1950s, our productivity and engagement has been declining worldwide. Despite all the technology that we've actually had more access to, despite actually higher and higher investments and efforts around employee engagement. And what his research surfaces is that we know that we're dealing with more complexity in the world in the current pandemic, and what we're talking about today is as part of that complexity. But what he says is there's been a 6 times increase in complexity that businesses have to face. And that complexity might be customer requirements, the landscapes that we have to deliver in, even if you're just trying to be more client-centric as a form of complexity. But he says what's happened is, as organizations, in responding to that complexity, we have a 35 times increase in complicatedness. And complicatedness means that I think we're using an old management paradigm to try and address complexity. We need to embrace more of what Dr. Anderson was talking about. We're using a paradigm that every time we confront complexity, we try and clarify it with more KPIs, with more role descriptions, with more, this is the rules, procedures, policies, and actually that just makes things more complicated rather than actually cutting through complexity. So he advocates a whole lot of smart simplicity, and he says actually all this complicatedness is what wears our employees out in terms of engagement. So actually, it's not about us doing a whole lot to make people feel better necessarily. How can we take the friction out of employees' lives while they try and make an impact for customers? How can we take out the complicatedness, give them more space and less constraint. Yeah, so I think maybe the way we try and tackle engagement needs to be re-examined. Yeah.
Thank you for that, and thank you for responding. We already have the Q&A answered. So Michael, 1 minute and discuss your office. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I just to also just ride before I go into what my thoughts are, just to ride on what Dr. Anderson said. The office-less work is what I think our leadership and the HR teams need to embrace, because the world has been sick. Global warming, the carbon emissions, and this is an opportunity for us to heal the world. And if we embrace it, if we embrace that mindset, if we have a paradigm shift and develop trust in our staff and embrace autonomy, we will be able then to leverage on the capabilities of our people, irrespective of their geographic location. And the beautiful thing about the office-less work, it means that in terms of talent acquisition, we can reach out to talent sitting anywhere globally. The downside to this, of course, then is the talent war for talent will become more vicious in the years to come, because people will go where they get office-less working, not as a perk, but as the way and culture of the organization. So my dear colleagues in the HR fraternity, I think it's time for mind shift. And if you don't embrace change, you'll be overtaken by so many things. Over to you, Dr. Ito. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to mention about my space. I was actually heading to the office and the traffic became unbearable. I think we have an accident somewhere along the road. So I had to take my call from here. I hope I was loud and clear.
Thank you, Michael. Definitely speaks to the subject that with good tools and the right mindset, you can work from anywhere. That was not planned, but we are happy that you're able to join in on the call. I like the aspect of we have to heal the world, and you've brought in a nice component of talent management. Who are we procuring? Where are we getting them from? And how do we sustain? So ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to just pause and review the questions. Maybe we just need to engage with the audience now and see if there are any questions perhaps that have not been answered, or any hands, any questions that will come. If you can post a question. Do we have any questions? Oh, those are greetings. Yes, greetings. Because if we don't have any questions, I'll do a final, because there is a question perhaps. Any questions? I want to give you an opportunity. I think the question in the Q&A has been answered. Gadoni, I hope you're satisfied with that answer. I'm posing for any questions, unless we're here to have missed any from the chat.
Dr. Selene, I have not seen any.
Okay.
But someone, if you want to speak, you can raise your hand. We will unmute you and you can ask your question. If not, you can type it either in the Q&A or in the chat function, and I will look out for it.
The question from Bethel is there. Dr. Calais, can you see the question? What is the response to judiciary virtual process? Dr. Calais is connecting. Anything, any other question? I'm just watching our time, and Waheto, you will guide me. I'm working with the program, but if I have 2-3 minutes, I think I have about 6 minutes before our time is up. Dr. Calais, are you now on? Oh, unfortunately, we have, I think, lost her on the call. Rose, there's a question from Rose Amy Rose Opio, knowledge workers can comfortably work virtually. Please share ideas on how to manage workers who need to physically be present in the workplace, e.g. factory line workers. It's not directed at anyone. Who wants to have a go at that question? We still have Dr. Anderson and Michael, and have we lost Sean also? Okay, between the two gentlemen, please.
Yes, I think, so the question, if I understood it right, is how can we manage the workers who have to be in the office, or rather in the workplace? And I think one thing I'll emphasize, and coming from the health perspective, is please let's adhere to COVID protocols in the workplace. You know, sanitation, fumigation. Think about the safety of your employees first before you start thinking about productivity and thinking about profits. Because if they're healthy, if they're fit, the others will come in. And then just adhering to our standard operating procedures as has been. However, for those colleagues who are away from the office and there might be need for some interaction, I think I'd encourage that we have occasional team building sessions or office days where those who are out of the office and are able to come into the office can come and interact with those in the office, just to ensure that there's teamwork, the group dynamics are running well, and to create a sense of inclusivity so that you do not make those who are remaining in the workplace feel disadvantaged, but you need to carry along everybody. Over to you, Dr. Salome.
Thank you. Dr. Anderson, anything to add?
Thank you so much, Dr. Gito. And Michael, thank you. I share your sentiments very well. In fact, my experience is in Ghana. Last year, a company that does breweries, they changed their factory line into making sanitizers. And they had a lot of orders. In fact, I think they were number 1 or number 2 in the country. There was so much demand. And then they neglected the COVID protocols, and half of their staff that were at the factory were accounted for Ghana's largest increase during a very short period in COVID numbers. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you need to take care, you need to ensure that those protocols are observed. Again, you need to also support them with a lot of mental health support, okay? Because they see some others not showing up physically. They are commuting, they are also exposed to all sorts of risk. So how do you balance that for them? What kind of incentives can you create? Okay, and I like the aspect of having social gatherings. In fact, there is a major bank in West Africa right now that mandates all employees to show up at least once into the office, okay, during the week, even though you work virtually, so that there can be some level of hand-holding, social contacts, and people can get to put a face to a name, okay? And I think those are just the safety is important, of course. Then make sure that there's inclusivity in all you do around that.
Thank you. So we can get back to work, but watch around the protocols and safety and well-being. The next question is for you, Dr. Anderson. Jane Heather says, trust is a major issue when dealing with hybrid / agile working. How can we enhance trust in the virtual working place?
I think the question should be, what was the status or level of trust within the organization before this new working arrangement? Mm. You cannot impose trust. Trust has to be earned. And there's a famous Gallup study that came out in 2013 that says that the number 1 reason for employee disengagement, okay, is lack of trust in management. So if the managers don't trust the employees don't trust the managers, the management don't trust the managers, then there's a breakdown somewhere that's a deeper root. And that's why one of the things we advocate is that as part of your digital transformation, you need to have a cultural transformation. You need to go back into the culture of the organization and ask, what are our values? Are we living them? What values do we need in an agile world? okay? And then you implement those values and all the enablers around it that will make it work. And that's my short answer for that very complex question. There are difficult conversations in every organization that they need to have. Okay, this period presents that opportunity to have those conversations. And then once we address the underlying precipitants and mitigants for those issues, then we can move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. And I like that you throw it back that trust could not just have changed now. Definitely very important, but may tie up with the aspects also of the security, data privacy, data protection, but the aspect of trust between the people that needed to have been there. Thank you for that answer. Right, let me see if there's any other question. So you've tackled the aspect of trust. Maybe there was a question, Michael, a comment. You talked about the talent procurement, and you said that really it would be a matter of competition, and I could work from anywhere. In my experience, when the pandemic set on, my understanding of the word gig economy was about jobs in the entertainment industry, and I never saw myself being in a gig, but our work as consultants now is gigs. So I have a gig with this organization, and somebody just needs an evaluation here, somebody needs resourcing of talent here. What then is the loyalty? Where do I belong? Is that going to be a problem when I can work anywhere in the world, anytime? And the issue of brand, corporate brand and identity, where does that leave us? Michael.
Thank you. I think the question is, what generation are we facing now? This is a generation that latches onto a cause. So the cause could run across different organizations. And that's why if you look at the millennials, their aspiration is not to have a lifetime job. That's why they really, they fit very well into the gig economy. And what will drive them more is aspirations and bigger, a bigger cause. What are they contributing to? So will it be environmental protection? Is it human, health? Is it technology? So if you are able to encapsulate your value proposition as an organization, then and it resonates with the beliefs of these millennials, then you shouldn't be worried about the loyalty. They'll be loyal to the cause, but not to you as an organization. Yeah.
Thank you. I see Sean, you're back. If you can speak to the aspect of corporate brand and identity in the office-less state. Thank you.
Thank you, and my apologies. I don't know what happened. I got dropped off entirely. Yes, and in fact, I'm going to link the identity through to culture. And I just caught the last part of what Michael was speaking about. I think in the new way of working. So I actually prefer not to think of office-less. I prefer to think of dynamic working or agile working or new ways of working, because I think the office is only one part of it. And I think when we talk about the office too much, we get just caught in that one component of it. I think in general, we need to link to autonomy. We need to give people a lot more choice. So within choice will come a connection in terms of identity, which means from a culture perspective, I can start finding ways to align my preferences in terms of what I would like to work on, what I believe in, and the type of impact I want to make in the world with what an organization actually requires and what that organization's purpose is. So there's a really nice, a really effective article by MIT Sloan that talks about a digital ready culture, and we're going to speak about it a bit more tomorrow in the breakout. But what they talk to is companies more and more in terms of being digital ready are going to be focused on making an impact, making a difference in the world, addressing some of the planetary issues and social problems that we have. I think our people working for us have got exactly the same need. And if we can give people the connection between those, I think we're going to give them a great ability to bring meaning to my life and bring identity. So working more on values and making sure that we connect people with our values as an organization, with their values, and then give them the space within guardrails to really, really express the impact that they want to make in the world. I've got a 21-year-old son, and with that comes a 21-year-old girlfriend and their friends. And really what strikes me about that generation is that they really want to deeply address some of the challenges that exist in the world. They don't just want jobs, and they don't just want employment and salaries even. They want to make a difference in the world. So we're going to need to find ways to do that for them. So I think we also need to bring more choice. Sorry, last point, and I'm taking long. And I think the idea of choice also speaks to, when can I be in a space where I can connect with people, and who feels comfortable to do that, and for what purposes? And when is it that we do need to be digital and working virtually like this? And I think the future is more hybrid. Nedbank, actually one of our financial institutions in South Africa, has just actually released we're never going to have more than 60% of people on any campus in the future. So they've made a sort of policy announcement, and I think that's where most companies are going to head. But I do know people from a resilience perspective, we need to still connect. We can't stay only virtually working going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And of course, we are all with you with what's happening out in South Africa, and we just hope that peace and sanity can be restored, because that's not the office-less we are talking about. We don't, and that's not the distraction we want. But all the best to the people in South Africa. I'll give Dr. Anderson a minute just to make a parting shot, and then I'll try Dr. Calais one more time, and we'll bring this to a close as we wait for any other comments. Dr. Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Gito. And I just want to say that this conference is coming, this summit is coming at the right time, and the team is very apt. And I want to say to HR practitioners that it's time HR has a digital reset. Okay, there's no gainsaying. In my opinion, HR has been late to the party of digital transformation. In most organizations where I've led digital transformation projects, big major companies, you typically don't find the HR director at the table when those conversations are happening. You see the CFO, you see the CEO, you see the CMO, you see the head of IT, but we don't see the head of HR. And it's time to begin to not only reset digitally, but it's also time to begin to lead the digital mindset conversation. So HR should lead it, you should champion it. And one way to do that is that internally you need to drive the thinking around the stupid why questions. Okay, why are we doing this? Is there no better way? Okay, and that takes me to the quote I want to leave you all with. And it says that there is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. And I repeat, there's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. Because if you then do that, then you are my definition of a fool, F-O-O-L, which is someone that has redoubled their effort when they've forgotten their aim. And that will not be your case. So the future is digital, so should you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. And yes, let's reset. Let's ask ourselves the not so stupid whys, because they drive us, they get us to a particular space. And HR practitioners, we are being called to step up and speak up. We got a golden opportunity last year. Many have grabbed it. Some of us still have to come to terms with it, but this is our opportunity. We've been talking about seat at the table. There is no table. We are now at the driver's seat, and we have to grab it and move on. This opportunity may not come again. So let's reset and drive on. Dr. Calais?
Yes, Dr. Gitoho, so sorry. I think I'm in a place where the network terribly just let me down. I'm
Okay,
so sorry for that, but
just give us a parting shot, just 1 minute. We are coming to a wrap. There was a question on the judicial process, the virtual judicial process. That's why, because I'd like us to have answered the questions that were raised to us. What is the response to judicial virtual process? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gitoho. And what I would like to say is that for the judiciary, going virtual is real. We have put in place infrastructure that are going to ensure that we adopt to the virtual space. First and foremost, we have enhanced our infrastructure, our ICT infrastructure in terms of courts, the local area network, availability of even the desktops, the laptops, to ensure that we go digital in all the forms. We already have processes in place. We have the case management, where we have e-filing. We have introduced online case tracking systems. We have electronic payments that are being done on court matters. We have video conferencing, document management that is now online, and we also have document scanning and presentation in the digital form. As you're all aware, we are also doing even the online case ruling and judgments and presentations. And we are also enhancing the capacity of our ICT staff so that they can just be up to date when it comes to this digital version. But as for the judiciary, I want to confirm that we are ready and we are set. We are not looking back, and that is now going to be the norm. In fact, the more we put systems in place, the more you'll be so comfortable handling your court matters at hand. There's also an SMS system that has been introduced where you can be able to follow your court processes. And once again, so sorry for that mishap, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Gitoho.
Thank you. And I think with that, I want to thank my panel. Sean Hetema from all the way from South Africa, thank you for joining the call, for your contribution and your perspective. Dr. Anderson, all the way from West Africa, thank you so much for your input. Michael Chamere, thank you so much, here in Nairobi and currently Offie-less. And Dr. Calais, thank you so much for your contribution. I hope the participants have enjoyed this session, have learned a lot, and have something to take back, and not only take back, but apply. So thank you so much. And at this stage, I hand it back over to Aheto. Thank you.